Great question. So the short answer is that BitGold has nothing to do with Bitcoin, except for the fact that there's 7 letters in the word Bitcoin and 7 letters in the word BitGold, and they both start with a bit. But it's not a secret that both Josh and I were inspired by Bitcoin. We spent a lot of time studying everything we could about Bitcoin, and we think that A, we're not smart enough to yet know, and B, Bitcoin's technology is so profound that in some way, shape, or form, in the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years, we'll be looking back at Bitcoin as having affected some type of a change in the way we exchange value. I'm pretty confident of that it will mark that inflection point in history where we all of a sudden figured that we don't need to use all these concentric circle-based organizations built on top of an antiquated infrastructure to simply exchange value between each other. The issue that we saw with Bitcoin was our motivations for starting something like BitGold or running a business like GoldMoney were motivations that came from the understanding of monetary history and the interest in preserving our users' wealth and democratizing their access to financial services. And the more that we studied Bitcoin, we felt that at its core, the core philosophy of Bitcoin was inconsistent with the advancements we've made in society and specifically in consumer finance with respect to consumer protections, reversibility of transactions, know your customer and anti-money laundering regulations. And we felt that if we could supplement a mathematical token, which is what Bitcoin is, with a physical vaulted piece of gold, we could achieve a closed loop network more similar to PayPal that would allow us to have transaction reversibility, fully known customers, KYC, best services or best class anti-money laundering policies, and still get all the benefits and promise that Bitcoin holds in the world of value transfer. So we'd still allow you to exchange value very quickly. We would still allow you to access ordinarily sophisticated financial services. So you could be living in Mexico and accumulating a surplus of gold in London, and the next time the peso gets devalued by 30 or 40%, you're sitting pretty, you're fine. Your work, your labor, your time, your family's time wasn't devalued because of some exogenous reason.
Yeah, when we look at Bitcoin, one thing that we really like is the utility of the network, and a lot of people make the idea or analogy that Bitcoin's token value is so strong because of the network effect and the value of the network. But that's exactly what we're doing with gold. By creating this value in the network where people can transact instantly and free across borders with an underlying commodity that's always existing and fully owned, there's a lot of value to that, removing all the friction of foreign exchange and removing the friction of correspondent banks as money moves from one banking ledger to another one in another currency. So just like Bitcoin, there's many use cases in remittance markets, in cross-border payments, cross-border transactions on mobile phones and in-app phones anywhere in the world. So there's a lot of value to our network, but as Roy was saying, that network is also protected by a lot of consumer protections, reversibility of transactions. We know that we know our customers on the network and they're not engaged in fraud, and so there's a lot of protections with all of that value to the network.
Yeah, like consumer protection, for example. What happens when you use a Bitcoin to purchase something from a local merchant, and you were perpetuating the crime. So the merchant sold you a bicycle, and you paid with a stolen Bitcoin. What is the chain of custody? These are issues that we dealt with, in the time of Solomon, and we evolved and we graduated, and we figured out that there had to be a resolution system. And what I think is most naive about Bitcoin, or what I think is the Achilles heel with Bitcoin, is I don't believe there's been sufficient thought on these topics. And the issue is that if Bitcoin were to implement all of these features, then what advantage does it have over low latency fiat in the form of like a MasterCard payment or a tokenized Visa card on your Apple Pay? Because ultimately the value of those networks, like a Visa or MasterCard, is transaction reversibility and merchant resolution, and so it's going to be interesting. We think that the greatest advantage that we have is that, for close to a decade, we both spent, our lives reading everything we could about monetary history, physics, anthropology, and all in the pursuit of understanding natural systems and gold. And when we were doing this, Josh was doing it as an engineer, and then a senior analyst at Goldman Sachs. I was doing it because I have this quirk where I have to understand how things work, and I couldn't understand how gold worked. And in order to understand how gold worked, I had to understand how money worked, and couldn't understand how money worked until I understood how markets worked, and I couldn't understand how markets worked until I understood how psychology worked, and it was this rabbit hole. But eventually, I did get to the bottom of it. Money is proof of time. It's proof that its owner has expended time and effort in order to gain ownership of the money. And because of the laws of physics in our universe, it's very difficult to prove ownership of anything over the course of time, because time is always fighting against you, because time creates cycles through which most of what we have around us rots or evaporates or expires. And so the perfect money has to be immortal to time. It has to outlive time. And when you get down to the physics, there aren't many elements in the periodic table that are immortal to time. But then you get to these 8 noble metals, and those are, for whatever reason, at the inception of the universe, immortal to time. They last forever. There's a fixed quantity of them in the earth, in our atmosphere, and there will always be a fixed quantity of them, eons from now. And as you work your way through those 8, all of the 8 would be fine, but 4 of the 8 are just extremely rare, infinitesimally rare. Like they're basically, the size of a bowl. That's how much, you might have like worth of, osmium or iridium. I'm probably wrong on that, but it's very rare. And the other 3 are all indiscernible. They all look like silver. So if I had them on this table, you wouldn't know what was palladium, what was platinum, or what was silver. And then you have gold. And gold is not only rarer than those other 3, it's discernible instantly. It's yellow and shiny. And so over time, by default, one of the 4 had to become money, because nothing else could prove that you expended time to accumulate it. But through a Darwinian process, gold ascended as the perfect money because it was easily discernible, it had a lower melting point, so it was easier to divide, and it became the social network that everyone wanted to use. I think we began to learn an even more interesting lesson, right, Josh?
Yeah, and so once we had our experiment with these elements and understood or again gold ascending as money because of the way it could withstand time, we realized that that's very, very important for cooperation. We realized that when someone's exchanging goods in a direct barter system, it just doesn't always make sense to bring all of your goods to the center of the market and figure out what's worth what at any given time. So money always has to be superior to the good you're trading it for, so that it's always accepted, and it always has to last until the next time you trade. And so gold really is nothing but a very big sharing economy. It's you never really own the gold. It's going to outlive you and outlast you anyways. What you're doing is you're enabling cooperation and allowing everybody to actually work and produce more than anyone can do individually. So gold really enabled this division of labor, in that a group of people working together can create a prosperity and surplus on a way that they couldn't do before. Now when you look at the internet and looking at this global cooperation now, that because we're so connected and interconnected, we come back to that importance of you've got to have a money that's always more important in the very short term, or always more valuable than that good, so that we can always be cooperating on this global scale and creating prosperity, not just locally, not just where someone has the best banking system or the best closest to the banking system. It needs to be ubiquitous, just like the mobile phones and internets are, where people can always have valuable money for their valuable time, no matter where they are in the world.